It's a beautiful day today and a beautiful day to read about some more entitled people. We've got a lot to get through today and I'm so excited and I hope you guys are too. So let's get into it. Enjoy, guys. Do you know who my husband is? This one's something that happened to me over 20 years ago, but for some reason it just popped into my head, and since it fits here, well, here we are. When my now ex-husband was stationed at an Air Force base along the Gulf Coast, I worked in the layaway, customer service, catalog order, gift wrapping department at the back of the base exchange, BX, and I had already been there for over a year. I was well liked by both my co-workers and supervisors. Usually at this department, it's walk in and get what you need, as it's usually not a super busy department. However, beginning not long after Halloween and into the new year, it got horribly busy, and at that point it was required for everybody to pull a number from the ticket dispenser at the entryway to the department. Once the holiday season began, this was absolutely a hard, fast rule no matter what. One weekend day we were wall to wall with people, and from the moment that we opened the registers we were busy. It got so bad that we had to call a couple of people over from other departments for the sole purpose of ringing through layaways, so a couple of people in our department could do nothing but gift wrap and grab layaways from the back that were being paid in full. I was at the register that was doing payments only on layaways, not even PIFs, just payments. I'm waiting on a customer when I happen to glance up and see a woman walk through the entryway and come straight to my register. Didn't grab a number, nothing. Just walked straight up to me and interrupted me with the customer that I was currently assisting. Her, you need to help me immediately. I'm in a rush and I can't wait very long. Me, ma'am, well, I can appreciate that. Everybody here has somewhere else they'd like to be. If you just grab a numbered ticket there. Her, interrupting me. I don't have time for that. You need to assist me now. At this point, I had finished up with the customer that I was helping, and I turned to click on the now being served, which was the number I called out. Number 75. Next customer, please. Her, now turning purple that she's so mad. Excuse me? You need to help me now. Do you know who my husband is? Me. Unless he's number 75, it really doesn't matter. As if this wasn't enough of a mic drop, this is where it gets really good. She's now apoplectic and demands to speak to my manager. Fair enough, let's go get her from the back where she's pulling PIF layaways and counting cash to be deposited into the main safe because our registers are getting full. Me to supervisor. Mary, this customer walked in, didn't take a number, came right up to my register and demanded that I take care of her ahead of a couple of dozen customers who patiently waited. I asked her to pull a number but she refused, and then asked me if I knew who her husband was. I should tell you, I told her that unless he was number 75, it didn't really matter. Mary comes out to the registers and walks up to the woman and says, "Ma'am, I'm this employee's supervisor and she tells me you'd like to talk to me." Entitled customer, "Yes, this." My supervisor held up her hand and cut off what the woman was saying. "Ma'am, I'd love to help you right this second, but as you can see, we're really busy. If you could just pull a number, I'll speak with you when it's your turn." At that, Mary turned around and walked back to the back and pulled PIF layaways. I wish I could describe the range of emotions that this customer experienced before she finally turned on her heel and left in a huge huff. Then, to add insult to injury, just as the woman was departing, another customer, I have no idea who, said loud enough for the room to hear, "Get back to us when your husband is more than a lieutenant." Best customer service day ever. Edit, I forgot to mention her husband, who was indeed a lieutenant, came in the next day apologizing for her behavior. Wow, that's so funny. Do you know who my husband is? Yeah, actually, he came in apologizing for your behavior. You handled this so well, OP. It's so cringy when people say stuff like that. Like, do you know who my husband is? Or do you know who I am? Like, no, I've got no idea, and it doesn't matter. The audacity. Story number 2. Entitled customer didn't know that I was more patient than the managers. I work at a college town bowling alley, and most of my co-workers do go to said college or nearby high schools. I'm lucky to have supervisors who let us stick up for ourselves when people are a bit unreasonable. 9 out of 10 times the supervisor will allow us to kick out somebody on a 3-strike basis. A guy and his son came in and were being really rough on the equipment, stepping on our lanes, even chipped a ball after he jumped the gutter. I was new to the job and being nice, and I just kept track of how many times he broke each rule. I informed him of the rules gently every single time he broke one, and the 5th time I talked to him, he goes, "Do you know who my wife is?" Wow. Right after we read the last story, somebody else is using that line. Me, your wife's status does not change our company's rules. Step on the lane to bowl like that again and my supervisor will be escorting you out. Entitled customer, you won't want to do that if you go to the college nearby. Me, I don't and I didn't. Entitled customer, she's on the board there. He had a smug look, expecting me to bend over backwards now. Me, that's nice. If you retrieve your own bowl again or hit our lane or sweep again, you're getting kicked out. Keep in mind, I was still 1 month into this new job. My manager that day was known for her no BS customer policy among the workers, and I was being nice, trying to be the middleman in and filtering what my manager said. Entitled customer, no I'm not. I paid for an hour. I'm playing for an hour. I'll make sure you lose this job too. Insinuating that I won't be able to attend the local college, which is fine because I didn't like the local college. I shrug and I get my supervisor. Supervisor, OP told me a bit about the situation. Entitled customer, good, I want our wasted time to be refunded and I want that employee written up for pointlessly bothering me. My wife is on the college board and I can't wait to tell her about this. Supervisor, you are aware that I was just at the counter 5 feet away. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Entitled customer, I paid to bowl. You explained this to my son. His son was like 6. Supervisor, right. She knelt to the confused boy. Your daddy won't follow the rules, so I'm afraid you can't play anymore until he says sorry to the nice lady helping you. Entitled customer got mad and started yelling insults, saying that she wasn't really the supervisor because she looked like she was in high school. She was. Demanded to talk to someone higher despite my supervisor saying she was the highest one on duty. The GM's little sister was working that day and got a video of the whole thing since it was so close to the counter to send to her brother. The general manager came soon after. He's like a year older than me and demanded entitled customer leave. He was no longer welcome there and he hopes his wife does hear about this incident. Entitled customer then called GM a liar, that he was too young to be a GM because he didn't even look 30. He then pulled the I'm friends with the owner BS and that we'll all be fired because of how we handled this. It took threatening police to get him to leave. We told the owner the next day and as I thought, we banned that guy. He broke lane 16. Yeah, like this comment says, you explain this to my son. Okay, kiddo, your dad's a dingbat. Yeah, that part was so funny. And this comment too, I work with customers. If they don't accept what I say and they ask to speak to my manager, I gleefully jump up and say, okay, but I'm the nice one, and skip away to go get him. And then they say that they should have stuck with me, lol. I love my manager. Yeah, I feel so sorry for people who have to deal with entitled people like this. Story number 3, Mr. Karen loses mind when I won't let his kid ride an exercise bike. I work part-time at a community centre fitness area. Most of the time the people are lovely. We have regulars and it is nice to see them. They work out, they clean up after themselves, they leave. It's great. Some days it gets annoying. The community centre is directly attached to a local high school. The very nice pool often holds high school swim meets and water polo matches and whatnot. To get to the pool observation deck, one must cut through said fitness centre. On a game or a meet day, a lot of people who normally wouldn't have access to our very large expensive gym with super expensive equipment can suddenly be in the building and causing all kinds of trouble. I only mention this because you have to be extra careful to enforce rules on these days in case some stranger decides to try and deadlift 400 pounds and breaks a fibula or something. This was one of those days. Mr. Karen is a fellow I've never seen. No biggie. New member perhaps. Day pass maybe. He has a small child with him. My estimation is the child is 5. The man is in jeans and a sweater. This does seem strange, but who the hell am I to judge what people exercise in? Our rules pretty explicitly state that children cannot use any equipment unless they're above the age of 14. From 8 years old and above, they're welcome to use our track as long as there's a guardian in the building. The man and the kid are on bikes. To be fair, the kid isn't being a twat. That happens a lot too. Kids will run in like psychos and try to use a rower and inevitably squish a finger or drop a weight. So yeah, props to him, I guess. I walk up and I apologize and I tell him the kid can't be on equipment, but he is more than welcome to use the track. Mr. Karen loses his mind. Mr. Karen, why? He's not doing anything. Me, you're right, but it's our rules. I'm sorry. Kids have to be older than 8 to use our track unsupervised, but he can't be on the equipment. Mr. Karen, yelling now. How do you know that he's not 8? Me, looking at him like he's nuts. What? Mr. Karen, you assumed his age. I can do whatever I want. Me, I did assume. I'm sorry. He certainly isn't over 14, so he can't be on the equipment. He asks for my manager, who tells him the same thing and says the classic line, I don't pay $1,000 a year to be a member here for you to tell me what I can and can't do. He's then asking for the Parks and Rec City manager's contact. We give it to him. He tells me to F all the way off and then he leaves. Later, I tell my other boss about this. They go down to registration to see who this dude is. Turns out, not a member. They have no record of it. Probably came in to watch water polo. So then he freaked out and lied to try to get his way. He sucks. Yeah, and so unnecessary too. How bizarre to have a rule that prevents young kids using equipment because they're too small, too physically underdeveloped, and or completely untrained to use safely. How dare you? Yeah, and this comment, there's a certain type of man who you simply can't say no to. If you do, they simply cannot compute it. They've never been told no all the way back to the nursery and they can't seem to handle it. They usually look a bit dumbfounded for a second and then they start to actually shake with rage and they get angry. They shout and demand until they get their way from somebody, and people usually just give in and give them what they want to calm them down, and that's how they get through life, and they usually get what they want. I've seen this so many times in customer service. It's psychotic. Yeah, absolute dingbat behavior. Post number 4, entitled passenger on a flight. I was told this story belonged on this subreddit. This story happened a few years ago, so details might be a little bit hazy. I was returning home from a trip that I cut short due to a family health emergency. The flight was pleasant, but I was in a bad place mentally. I did what I usually do in times like that, and I kept to myself, saying few words. I plugged in my headphones and I started to listen to some podcast during the 2-hour flight. Over the sound of the podcast, I heard somebody speaking loudly in a pretentious, nasally voice. I pulled out my earbuds and I heard a guy arguing with a flight attendant about how he had asked for something several times, but he didn't get it. I didn't really care and I tried to ignore him, but he kept on going, asking the flight attendant for her name and telling her that the airline company must hear about this. I don't remember what he wanted, but it was some kind of drink that they didn't have available for some reason. Well, getting upset over a drink, I returned to my podcast and I raised the volume. 10 minutes after, by the podcast timer, he was still ranting in his annoyingly pretentious way about professionalism, respect, and giving customers what they want. I switched to some rock music to drown him out, and I saw the captain coming over to talk to him. He was flailing his arms around like spaghetti. Yeah, but I mean, if they don't have the drink, they're not going to be able to get the drink. You're on an aeroplane, dude. Imagine getting upset about something so silly, especially in public too, where you're upsetting everybody else. My worry about my hospitalized grandma gave way to anger, and I started fantasizing about all the different ways I could shut him up. The captain walked away with a frustrated look on his face, and the flight attendant started serving the other passengers and ignoring his attempts to stir up trouble. I think they got him some alternative drink which he never even touched. We landed and I put my earbuds away to get ready to leave. He was first in line by the aeroplane door and I was right behind him. The door opened and an airport security guard was standing there to escort him through the tube. I followed, and by the end of the tube a higher ranking guard was waiting for him. He stood blocking the way out, and I saw that the other passengers behind me were fed up with this guy, who never even shut up for more than half of the flight time. He was arguing about how terrible the crew and the service was, and how he never had service this bad. He kept saying that he needs to leave now because his family were waiting for him, or some similar non-reason reason. My anger was starting to boil. Should I shove him? Bang my pulling bag onto his leg? Punch him in the back? Would everybody clap? I had to head straight to the hospital, and everybody behind me had places to go. I've heard many stories about people like him online, across many different channels. Nobody would feel bad for them, but this wasn't only about them, it was also about who I am and what kind of a person I want to be. I took a couple of deep breaths to calm down as he was telling the guards how to do their jobs, and with the most aggressive tone I could come up with despite my stress and exhaustion, I spoke up. Get the F out of my way. That F-bomb was enough to stun him, since everybody else was following a code of conduct required by their jobs, and for the first time since I noticed him, he had nothing to say. The guards took advantage of his silence and started to move him away, hopefully to some back office where he'll be delayed for a few hours. I left the airport and I headed home for a quick shower and a change of clothes before going to the hospital. My thoughts kept on going back to that entitled guy and how he thought he could be pretentious and rude with people whose jobs require them to be polite. Politeness never works with them, and sometimes meeting somebody who thinks that they're scum is the wake-up call that they deserve. Yeah, definitely OP. I can't even imagine being in that situation. Like, you're on an aeroplane. You're surrounded by strangers in a confined space. People are probably already kind of tense, and you have this person making a scene for no reason over a drink. Like, how ridiculous. And you have to sit there and listen to it. Yeah, that's so frustrating. Post number 5. Entitled kids harass people to buy candy and soda for them. I was at a local convenience store getting a 6-pack of wine coolers and some tacos and burgers from an in-store restaurant. While I was at the counter ready to pay for the items, a few kids came in. I didn't think much of them until they came up beside me and told the cashier I'd be buying some things. Before I could say anything, the cashier told them that was not happening. While that was happening at the same time, the other kids were harassing other people in the store to get them to buy them something. They refused and continued to refuse when further harassed by the kids. The cashier, who I also know as the owner, demanded them all to leave or else he'll call the police. They all left the store at the threat of police being called. I asked the cashier owner what that was about. He told me those kids were previously banned for harassing other customers last week and attempting to shoplift. I'm a bit confused about what was going on in those kids' brains that day. Yeah, this really reminds me of that Simpsons episode when Marge says kids can be so cruel, and Bart's like, we can?
Kids can be so cruel.
We can? Thanks, Mom.
Okay, story 6. Karen demands her meal for free but gets instant karma instead. This story's about my mother. Yes, she's a mega Karen, and unfortunately I've had to put up with her for most of my life. This happened when I was a teenager, around 15. We went out for dinner at a small local restaurant that did all-you-can-eat buffets. I should mention that my mother has long, thick, and curly hair, and she never ties it up. Important for later. We got our dinner and we sat down to eat, and all was going well. I was surprised at how well my mum was doing. By this point, she should have found something to complain about, and then it happened. She looked down at her plate and said, "Oh my God, look at this. There's a flipping hair in my food." Me, knowing exactly what she was doing, "Mum, that's your hair." "Mum, that's not my hair." The way she was talking was obviously dramatized for effect, and she was beginning to get louder and drawing attention from the other diners. She continued to cause the scene and to get more irritating, drawing more attention to herself and inadvertently me. I wanted to sink into my chair from embarrassment. Not long after she started her fake tantrum, the waitress came over to see what the problem was. "Waitress, how's it all going here? What seems to be the problem?" "Mum, there's a hair in my food food. Waitress, okay. Mum, getting furious at the lack of care from the waitress. Well then, what are you gonna do about it? We deserve to have our meals for free. This is horrible customer service. Waitress, with a smirk across her face. I'm sorry you're not satisfied with our food. Would you like to speak to the chef? Mum, looking smug that she thought she won. Yes, I would. I was confused at this point, not understanding why the waitress didn't seem to care, even though I knew my mum was lying, but it soon became clear why. A few minutes after, a man came out from the back of the store and walked right up to our table, and my mum's face went ghost white and her jaw dropped. The chef was bald. Not balding, but so bald you could see your own reflection on his shiny scalp. Chef, hi there, how are things this evening? What seems to be the issue? Mum, well, there's a hair in my food. Chef, smiling. I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am, but unless I've miraculously grown a full head of hair on my walk over to your table, you can see that I'm very much bald, and I'm the only chef working tonight. That's clearly not my hair. Mum, silence. Chef, is that all for now? I need to get back to work. Without waiting for an answer, he turned and walked back to the kitchen, but not before I mouthed sorry to him before he left. I knew better than to say anything to my mum after this, but I had a smile on my face for the rest of the night. Wow, so trying to get everything for free? There's a hair in my food, and I just put it there. Terrible service. Once again, I can't imagine dealing with people like this, and I can't imagine being you, OP. Like, imagine if one of your family members acted like this, and you had to go out and do stuff with them. Oh, that's actually infuriating. Like, oh, mum's making an issue out of nothing again. Yay. Post number 7. Karen outs herself as an office food thief. I work IT at a small non-profit. We have a kitchen and staff room and supply free coffee, tea, milk, sugar, etc. During the pandemic, all staff were working from home, but for the past few weeks, some staff have been coming back gradually, most for just 1 to 2 days a week, including myself and, unfortunately, Karen. Now, Karen and I have had many run-ins over the years, and suffice to say we don't get along. I don't tolerate her BS. A week or so after going back, Karen sends a condescending email to the office manager, OM, CCing all the staff. In it, she says that while she accepts that the office kitchen had not been stocked while everybody was on lockdown, she's appalled that there's no bread or bagels or yogurt for all the staff that have returned. OM replies, adding CCing all the staff. Karen, as a courtesy to the staff, we provide free coffee, tea, milk and sugar, all of which have been stocked. We have never provided free bread or bagels or yogurts or any other food. However, staff do keep personal food items in the fridge. Wow, that's so funny. So they've been eating everybody else's food? I can't believe there's nothing in the fridge I can steal. That's so funny. Oh, it seems I've been stealing food, and now everybody knows it. Post number 8. Karen doesn't like people parking in front of her house. So, when I was around 6 years old, I lived with my family in a nice house in a small city in Poland. It was a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts, and pretty much all the neighbors knew each other. There were no sidewalks around the part of the street that I lived at. Only one crappy sidewalk that started on the other side in front of my neighbor's house. It's important to remember that the sidewalk was very old and in bad shape. Still to this day, people are asking the city to fix it. This story is about that neighbor, Karen. She was an older lady. Everybody suspected that she didn't really have anything better to do than gather gossip and disturb everybody, trying to rule the street. Everybody was commenting that if you wanted to get the whole area to know something, you had to tell her that as a secret. Whenever somebody came to visit, they usually parked their car in front of our property, but on bigger meetups like barbecues or parties, people would park in front of our closest neighbors' houses too. That never was an issue. No gates were obstructed and nobody was disturbed. Well, almost. Karen hated when somebody parked in front of her house. She would always run out yelling about how we dared to park our filthy cars on her precious sidewalk. My mother is not somebody that lets somebody yell at her. She had many discussions with Karen about the laws and the rules and stated that she doesn't own anything outside of her fence, which means that the sidewalk is public and anybody can park on it, as long as they leave enough space for a wheelchair to pass. That wasn't enough. Every time somebody would come to us and park their car there, the yelling would start, until one time when my mother's friend, Tomek, came for a coffee during winter. He's a local policeman and his specialty is road law, so my mother tells him about Karen and her behaviour regarding the sidewalk. Tomek laughs since that thing was in such bad shape that it can barely be even called a sidewalk. When he was leaving, he assured my mum that he'd step by the next day for a coffee. The next day comes by and I was playing with my brother in the snow. We see a black car pulling over in front of Karen's house, and as the driver gets out, Karen storms out of her house yelling, "You can't park there, this is my sidewalk, get your filthy car off my property." Well, there was Tomek with his full uniform, hat and all, turning around towards Karen as comically as he could. "Excuse me, you tell me that I can't park my car here?" Karen, "Yep, yes." Tomek, "But this is a sidewalk open to the public." Karen, "Yeah, this is my sidewalk." Tomek, "So let me get this straight, this is your sidewalk." Karen, "Yes." Tomek, "And you are the one responsible for taking care of it." Karen proudly, "Well, yes I am. That's why I don't allow anybody to park here." Tomek, "Oh, that's so nice that I found you. Since it is your sidewalk, you're responsible for clearing the snow from it to not create danger for the people walking on it. Since it wasn't plowed, I need to write you a fine for endangering public safety," he says as he pulls out his notebook. Karen, "But no other sidewalks are plowed." Tomek, "Oh, it doesn't matter. The other sidewalks belong to the city. The clearing crew is working on cleaning them. them. But since this sidewalk is yours, it's your responsibility. Karen, but I'm old. I can't shovel the snow. Tomek, then you need to hire somebody to do that. Of course, if this sidewalk happened to be of public property. Karen, yeah, it's not mine. Tomek, but a moment ago you were yelling at me that it was. So what is it? Is it yours or not? Because I don't know if I should fine you now. Karen, no, it's not mine. Tomek, all right, seems like we cleared that up. Now, if you ever harass anybody like you did with me, it could result in a fine. So I recommend you watching out on what you claim to be yours. And then he proceeded to cross the street and enjoy a coffee in our house. Karen never disturbed anybody for parking in front of her house again. She would only stare at people trying to burn holes in their skulls with her sight. Wow, that's so awesome. And a beautiful place to end the episode. I feel like we've definitely read enough Entitled People for one day. And considering that we'll probably read more Entitled People tomorrow, I feel like we should read something wholesome. According to my calculations, you're cute. Oh, that's so adorable. I was about to say, that's so cute, but that's what Rowlett said. A wah wah wee wah comic. Someday your day will come. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yay, it's my day. Look at me all pretty covered in lights. In public, hair done, put together, professional, real pants. 2 minutes after we get home, hoodie with a pizza stain, pajamas at 5 p.m. John's sweatshirt I borrowed 8 months ago. Socks that have llamas on them. No pants. Oh, that's so sweet. The way it should be when your homie uploads a new selfie. Oh, that's so awesome. I'm here to support you, my friend. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time. And if you did and you want to see more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe. And the comment of the day today goes to Larry Dream. I've got my crochet ready this time for whenever you post it. This is going to be a wonderful day with a start like this. Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so glad, and I hope it was a wonderful day. I'm so happy that my videos can make it a little bit better. That's my only goal with these episodes. And yeah, thank you for the support. And thank you all for the support, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with a brand new episode, and I hope to see you then. Make sure you look after yourself and make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!